What's the worst physical pain you ever felt? Story 1. Gout. I thought lovingly about removing my foot with a hacksaw. Gout is the absolute worst. I thought I knew pain until that day. The shittiest part is that the pain doesn't come in waves. Whatever your brain does to alleviate pain is not strong enough to give you a break. It is just constant, indescribable pain in one joint of your toe. Mothers who have had it describe it as worse than childbirth. I remember sitting there delirious with pain, feeling sad about all the people alive right now, and who have ever lived, that had to experience pain on that level while everyone else went about their lives comfortably. Like, how can you smile right now? Person on the TV, when pain like this is a thing that the brain can experience and people are suffering. Cutting off one's own foot with a hacksaw and no anesthetic would be a relief. You just gotta soldier through the suffering and think about the difficulty of living without a foot. Story 2. Trigeminal neuralgia. Excruciating stabbing pains triggered by any and everything. You can't touch your face, brush your teeth, eat, kiss, lay on your side, nothing involving your mouth. It's like a relentless ice pick stabbing you, or a million electric shocks. Sooner or later, you will want to die. That's why they call it suicide disease. Story 4. Opened up a pressure cooker while it was still on the stove back in the 90s. 40% of skin surface burned and my heart is now shit on a stick. Story 5. Pilonidal cyst right on your tailbone from snowboarding and then having to sit on a 4-hour flight. Doesn't sound like much, but if you've had one, sitting upright was hell. Hopefully some useful info for those who have had this recurring. There is a surgical option with 85% efficacy of non-recurrence. If you can get your insurance to cover it. After years of dealing with recurrence and more than a dozen ER visits, I finally convinced the insurance that it was worth it to them. Try to find a local specialist. The doc I went with was very highly rated, but has since retired and passed on. He performed my surgery a few days after turning 73, so I guess that shouldn't have been too surprising. Pre-surgery is the time to look into liquid diet, as you will not want to have much of anything in your colon for a few weeks. I wasn't given this advice, so somewhere in the history of my post replies, I got into graphic detail of the horrors of a post-surgical dump that put me back into the hospital the day after surgery. You'll be scrubbing down multiple times a day with povidone iodine and or chlorhexidine scrub. Day of, you'll get full sedation. For a flap surgery. Not to get too graphic, but pilonidal cysts occur most usually around the sweat glands and hair follicles. When you have multiple hair follicles in clusters, this happens most often in the perineum above the anus. This is the area that gets flapped, with a section of skin and upper fatty tissues excised. Then the flaps of skin pulled tight and stitched. You will be immobile for a few days, whether you like it or not. The stitches holding the flaps together will make you regret trying to get up, move, bend, roll over, or play dead. There will be many stitches and they will hold secure. It is not an easy recovery, and they don't/won't use dissolvable suture. The good news, after about 2-3 weeks, you'll be able to have the stitches out, and post-surgical follow-up should be positive. 15 years and counting. I have had the scar tissue from the sutures cause me a scare or 3. But besides that have had 0 recurrence. Best of luck, pilo sufferers. Story 6. Abscess tooth. But wait, let me finish. Abscess tooth. After the dentist removed the wrong tooth, the one next to the abscess tooth, on the way home when the local wore off. Edit. By far my most popular comment over. Damn, thanks. So, a lot of people asking about lawsuits. Unfortunately, that was not an option. This was a low-income state-sponsored thing that the dentists volunteered for, and part of getting them to volunteer was a no-liability thing. Plus at the time I kind of figured I'd probably explained which tooth wrong rather than him just pulling the wrong one. I'm guessing I probably could have held the state liable, but at the time I was much younger and not very savvy, so I never pursued it. I've noted a couple of people say that kidney stones are more painful than abscessed teeth. Now I've had kidney stones, and I'm guessing you didn't let me finish. Also, abscessed teeth can vary in pain intensity, as can kidney stones. Anyways, I can't keep up with all the replies to save my life, but I appreciate the discussion from everyone. Story 7. Kidney stones, and it's not close at it. Hijacking my own comment because people are asking about prevention. Drink more water than you do now. Just hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Story 8 Gallbladder stones almost killed me. Stones blocked a duct and caused an infection. I stumbled into the ER and doctor walking by looked at me and grabbed a stretcher. A minute later they were putting in the fourth in each arm with multiple bags. They gave me different antibiotics as they didn't have time to test. Doctor said I would have been dead in less than 8 hours. They gave me so much pain meds that they had to call a pain specialist from another hospital. He said I would have to take me off the pain meds for 24 hours. They had given me enough meds to kill 2 horses and I ordered to change meds. They had to get the other stuff out of my system. He gave me some super potent medical weed. He said he saves it for special cases. I got to smoke up on the roof of the hospital. No food or water for 7 days while I waited for emergency surgery. Had surgery and got overdosed on fentanyl during the procedure. Was moved to ICU after surgery as they were having problems keeping me breathing. I was released the next day and they gave me different pain meds to take. I got home and took the pain meds. I had a severe allergic reaction. My skin was burning and blisters were forming all over. Within 2 hours my testicles had swollen to the size of baseballs. I felt like light was burning out my eyeballs. I could feel extreme burning nerve sensations anywhere my clothes were touching me. My insides felt like they were melting. Made it back to the ER and still had my old ID bracelet on. I saw the same doctor that admitted me the week prior. He looked at me and grabbed a stretcher. The allergic reaction had caused another infection. Asterisk, I think I posted this twice here. Story 9 Testicular torsion. I was 17 and didn't know what it was, thought it might be blue balls. So waited until it was the size of a grapefruit and in excruciating pain and had mom take me to the ER. Half my testicle was dead but I got a Demerol drip and all was good after that. But oh boy, that pain was significantly worse than the kidney stones. Edit. Wow. Didn't realize there were so many members of the Twisted Nut Club. Like I said, mine happened at 17 and wasn't addressed until day 3. At that point I couldn't sit down or drive due to the massive NUT that was preventing me from closing my legs. Anyhow, much of the tissue organ was not savable, so the surgeon had to remove a fair amount. Now I've got some testicle left and also a whole bunch of scar tissue. It's gross and I had low sperm count for a while. But now I've got 2 kids, so personnel. Good thing is when they opened me up the doc said he'd lasso the other testicle, my right one in this case, to the side so it wouldn't face the same fate as the dead left nut. But guess what? 2 years later I woke up one morning and felt a familiar pain. I was boarding a plane that morning but I knew WTF was going on, so I called ahead and had it operated on later that day. I probably should have sued the original surgeon for testicular negligence but I never pursued it. Meh. Years later, about 10 years ago now, my wife and I headed down the coast so I could race a 50K in SLO. Woke up what I thought were butterflies and went through the whole process. Ended up barfing and passing out, and my wife drove me gingerly but still painfully to the ER where they looked at me and said, "Will, he's either in labor or he has a kidney stone." Yep, a hefty 3 mm stone lodged in my ureter. That was painful but still nothing compared to the twisted nut. Story 10 Sneezed and herniated a disc in my back. Couldn't walk for 5 days. This was almost 2 months ago and I can still barely stand for longer than 5 minutes at a time. Edit Dad. After reading some of the replies to my comment, I am one of the lucky ones apparently. I feel bad for all of you and sorry, but I hope I don't have this problem as long as all of you have. Story 11 I woke up during my first wisdom tooth surgery to the dentist drilling the teeth but still couldn't move. I managed to make a noise when she started scraping out the tooth chips. Turns out she didn't have anesthesia and used a high dose of Vicodin Roman 4, and I had a high tolerance for pain meds because of recreational use with my buddies. I remember her finally noticing and looking into my eyes, and her face just went pale and she looked so scared I can't imagine what I must have looked like. Story 12 Had my wisdom teeth cut out. Halfway through one tooth the medicine wore off. They couldn't renumb it as it was halfway hanging out of my mouth, so I felt everything as they finished removing my wisdom tooth. Story 13 Tooth abscess. Horribly painful. Not as stuff like kidney stones, but it usually lasts longer and you can basically do nothing to make it pass until the antibiotic takes effect. I almost destroyed my stomach with anti-pain and it didn't do shit. I hated it. After some days the abscess finally broke and it was the most relieving and disgusting feeling at the same time. Blood and pus all over the mouth. but the pain stopped. Edit just to explain further. The dentist told me that he couldn't extract the tooth till the infection was over. I had quagmired tear jaw for some days. Story 14. Glad someone else posted this. Before last year I would have said my nerve conduction tests where they stick an electrified needle directly into your nerves, or when I had my spine surgery. But after I got my IUD, it's the IUD hands down. Thank God it wasn't an extended period of pain, but that 2-3 minutes felt like I lived 4 or 5 lifetimes of pain. I'm lucky my recovery afterward was comparatively easy. It just felt like I had cramps and needed to poop really bad, so I was able to drive home, take some ibuprofen, and lay with my heating pad until it got better. But damn, knowing I have to go back in 6 or 7 years and have it done again gives me the panic sweats. And I'll still do it because it's the easiest form of birth control for me so far and cuts down on my painful periods/cramps by like 99%. No pain, no gain, I guess. Also bonus points for me having a tilted uterus and only finding that out when the doc asked me to use my fists to prop my pelvis into a weird position while everything went in. She was like, "Try to relax," and I was like, "I am trying," through grit teeth. Then when all was said and done she told me I'd handled it really well, as most patients either scream, pass out, or throw up. I mean, I came close to all three, but my more pressing concern was how hard it was pressing against my vagus nerve and whether I was going to accidentally poop all over the exam table. Thank God the tank was empty. That kind of pain and torture, and all we get are docs telling us it's not so bad and to take some ibuprofen to deal with it. Amazing. Story 15. Period cramps that I had at age 16-17. They were worse than giving birth. Appendicitis and kidney stones. The pain would cause me to faint while sitting down in school, and I once had a set of cramps so brutal that I was screaming at the top of my lungs in excruciating pain, literally thinking I was going to die. It felt like my lower stomach was on fire, being stabbed, kicked and twisted repeatedly while being stung by a million wasps. My dad was there, and this is one of 2 times I've ever seen him cry or show fear. Story 16. A lot of women/girls will understand this one, but period cramps. I'm not usually one to get horrific period cramps. They're usually bad but not unbearable. Well, I was at school one time and I was sitting in my class in excruciating pain, sitting in my lesson in tears, where I had to go to the matron school nurse and she gave me some water and a sick bowl. After about 45 minutes she sent me back to class, but I was in so much pain I had no choice but to beg to go home. She didn't let me. I went to my next class and again burst into floods of tears since it was just so unbearable when my teacher advised me to visit the matron again, still not being allowed home. In the end I went to my head of year where she called the matron telling her I was to be sent home since I've never been like this in my 5 years of being at that school. Meaning it was so strange for me to be in such amount of tears that she was quite concerned for me. I've never been in such pain in my life, and I would never wish the way I felt that day on anyone.